Okay.
So the thing is that when I'm looking at a fasted glucose reading, it's more so telling me how stressed your body is.
Yeah.
And then when I'm going into obviously a postprandial, that's showing me how well you're utilizing, the sugars, your glucose, to be used as energy.
Okay.
And with a
Okay.
lot of people that are, metabolically resistant, weight loss resistant,
Yeah.
and especially females from all the stress and the hormonal change, their cells become less, responsive to insulin. So it's like you have your cells, and then insulin doesn't want to get into it, for it to be,
Hmm.
utilized from ATP and all that, the mitochondria. So it obviously causes an array of issue. It spikes it, and then you get all those symptoms. But
Yeah, and I
well,
love like the whole aspect of like because I was like meditate, Diego. I don't know how to meditate. My kids are so loud, like they're so crazy. But you were like you can just lay in the room and put on the sound waves. And the first night you sent it over, I guess it was Tuesday, I think. I don't know. But I did. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna try this, and I did it. I swear to God, I fell asleep in like 2 minutes.
oh
I was
yeah,
just okay. This is easy. So I just put like sound waves for meditation. I've been trying to do that every night, and then I was gonna ask you what kind of oils you suggested. Like I know there's a big thing about like oils, and they have to be like a certain brand. But what can I get like to just start with that? I have some. Um, because I use some for my son because he has really bad allergies. But what do you think?
I usually do tea tree or peppermint,
Okay.
lavender.
That's,
But tea tree, peppermint, and lavender are definitely like my top.
where do you buy them from?
I usually just get them from like what's this? I mean, I'm in the Midwest, so we have like something called CVS. I don't know if they have that over
Yeah,
there.
we have that. Yeah, we have that. Okay,
CVS
cool.
or Walgreens or something like
Okay,
that. Because
okay.
for some reason they have, for some reason they have them there.
They have them everywhere. Yeah, I just, some of them you're like, are they really like essential or are they just filled with water? So I'll definitely get some more of those. I have lavender, and I have a couple others. So, but I plan to just go today was like, oh my God, but my stuff came and I'm done like feeling sorry for myself and I'm
Oh,
diving in tomorrow. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I'm just finishing some of these um touches, and then we're gonna start on this presentation here.
Okay.
To I have it recorded for the other women.
Okay.
And then
Are they all like around, have they all just recently joined or are they all sort of like mid
yeah,
program?
so mostly everyone is in some part of their journey. The only
Okay.
other woman that's closest to you is Monica.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, so Monica started like last
Okay.
weekend. So yeah, so you two are pretty net together, and talking about the business side, every single coach knows this, like, there's always like waves of people that come in at once, and then it's like a dead drought, and then it's like waves of
Mhm.
people. Like,
Yeah.
at one point it was like Courtney, Jamie, this other girl named Mandy, Alyssa, and so they just like come in waves.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
we'll get going. Let me just share my screen here, and then let's present. So I wanted to go over
Okay.
some things that what Courtney was saying about changing up the meal plans and everything, and then I want to do more so talking about hormones, and then going into peri and menopause. And what does that, in fact, like, what does that look like for you, females, and then kind of what's actually going on during those things. So obviously, I put this medical disclaimer here because this isn't medical advice. I'm not a doctor, but this is just whatever. So okay, there we go. All right. So main thing is that so when we're looking at the meal plans for you girls and everything, we need to look at it might seem repetitive when you're following like an elimination diet to help you with removing the food allergens that could be affecting your gut, affecting your hormones, affecting your energy levels, and so there's a period of time where you want to be eliminating common food allergens, because many people make this mistake where they go and buy these like $900 food sensitivity tests, but if they just looked at the data and you just did like the common elimination diet, you can see great benefit. Now, when I run with you girls in the beginning is a strategic detoxification process. So we want to use key minerals, key nutrients, and key juices, so to say, to
Okay.
help with upregulating your liver function, upregulating detox. And then as time goes on and we transition out of more so what you'd call a functional type diet into more of a, tailored diet for your, physique goals and everything, things will change, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so when we're looking at these things and we're kind of focusing on what are the things that are actually impacting my GI health, impacting my hormones, impacting my thyroid. Okay. And we remove those things for a period of time and you just follow something strict. We have all variables on our side, meaning we have everything that we know what we need to change up for you to get progress or for you to help with whatever you're struggling with. We know exactly what we need to do and manipulate,
Mm-hmm.
and so this is why I've pretty much built out like recipe guides for, as we move into the other phases,
Okay.
for you women. So you know exactly what you can do for like breakfast, lunch, dinner, and things like this. Now, this isn't the end all be all, but this is like something where you can look at the macronutrients and then you can look at the total calories and then fit it on that. But in the beginning, we aren't focused on, we aren't focused on macros. We're focused
Mm-hmm.
on micronutrients and feeding yourself up on a cellular level. And so
Yeah.
definitely we'll utilize this. Other women have been utilizing this inside and just, continuing to get results. And then next is, a big thing coming with GI health. And that's like more so the low FODMAP and the high FODMAP diet. So high FODMAP foods, high FODMAP foods actually are like prebiotics to your gut. So they feed into your gut bacteria. But for majority of people, they already are struggling with bacterial overgrowth in the small intestine. Now, remember, your small intestine absorbs all your nutrients. And so obviously in modern time, back then, our large intestine had more, interplay, but as, times, changed, our food sources, our quality, we've mostly been utilizing nutrients through our small intestine. So what happens is that over time, when we continue to feed up the bacteria, obviously there's an overgrowth. And then these high FODMAP foods feed into that overgrowth.
Mm-hmm.
So in the period of time, we want to stick to lower FODMAP, lower oxalate is what you'd call it, to help with lowering the intestinal inflammation, starving, quote unquote, starving the bad bacteria, the overgrowth bacteria within the small intestine. And so this is almost like a food exchange as well, and then there's many different ones that you could be using. So that's more on the topic of the food exchanges and the swaps. Okay, so we want to hit the macronutrient goal, and then we want to make sure we're getting in the micronutrients to help with transforming not only the way that you feel, not only the way that your body's operating and correcting underlying health issues, but also getting you to look your best, building that physique. So actionable things would be looking at the recipe book and the low and high FODMAP type of diet strategies, and then continuing just the 101 stuff with me.
Okay.
And so some of the truth about food is that, obviously nutrition is like the biggest part of the whole journey in itself. Looking at different types of, elimination type diets and looking at what is the point of our nutrition plan. Well, most of it's to reduce the inflammation, not only in the gut, but in the body systemically. A lot of people don't realize that the food they're eating is giving them the joint pain, giving them brain fog. Okay, so the main thing is to reduce the inflammation. The next is to eliminate food reactions. So many people, like I said, this is why it's very, quote, stricter. You have exactly what you need to eat because we have to eliminate the food reactions, the food sensitivities. Many people are eating things like gluten, wheat, soy, corn, dairy, and don't even know that they're intolerant to all those.
Yeah.
Balanced blood sugars. Many people aren't even sure that they're just eating a meal full of different, sugars, and then their blood sugar spike, and then, it stays spiked, and then there's a crash. Obviously, supporting the gut microbiome, going back to low FODMAP, and then obviously losing fat, balancing hormones, muscle, brain performance, and mood. So just, removing the food toxins, okay, like cereal grains, because all of this now in the US has just been devoided.
Mm-hmm.
all these foods, cereal grains, especially redefined flour, obviously omega-6 seed oils. Okay, they pretty much inflame the gut, inflame your body, drives up metabolic dysfunction, pretty much all cardiovascular, cardiometabolic diseases. Same with sugar, and then processed soy, okay, and things like that, because this actually soy converts into estrogen in the body.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it may seem dogmatic at time, but this is something that we want to just look at for, you know, just for some time. We want to watch over this. But I want you to remember that, you know, like I say down here, like it's not food that's bad, it's what humans do to food that's bad. You know, because back in the, you know, obviously Paleolithic times or whatever, they didn't have all these problems. The food wasn't manufactured, preserved this way. You know, modern times has destroyed the quality of our food. So that's why it's super important that we, you know, look at the meal plans, we look at the way that we're eating food, the diet strategies, and all of that. The next thing is just pretty much mindset. So during the times, it's going to be like, holy shit, I'm following the same thing every day. It's going to be like, oh, I'm doing this every day. But just knowing that, you know, this is just for a period of time, and that we know if we do these inputs, we're going to get these outputs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have to follow the process to see the progress. You know, and so, you know, there is no secrets. Like everyone that's great is doing the same thing day in and day out. It's just consistency.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then figuring out what's not working and not working. All right, not working, failure. What's working? Prep for it, and just continue to just bring that grit. Just continue to keep going. So, you know, those are just some of the question things that we got into. So now let's get into more of the presentation type, talking about sex hormones here. Talking about sex hormones in females. Okay, so I want you to look at this. So hormones are the way that you think, feel, and experience the world. So women, you know this because your hormones have to cycle so aggressively for menstruation. But this is why so many women are on mood altering medication. And then obviously menopause is different, but we'll get into that. But one thing that you need to know about your hormones is that they're influenced by the other glands around it, organ systems. So if you just try to manipulate your hormones, then you're just doing it wrong. Because things like, we'll get into it, things like toxins, stress, gut bacterial imbalance, inflammation, okay, all these things influence your hormones. So if you just try to take something to help your hormones and you aren't looking at these other causes, you know, you're not going to get well. You know, and then this is some of the reasons. So many women walk around with secondary amenorrhea, meaning they don't have a cycle. And so why is ovulation important? Why is it important to have a luteal phase where you have a progesterone release? You know, this isn't the presentation for women's cycles, but just talking about why progesterone is important, because progesterone releases in luteal phase as a female, obviously. So it calms hormones, it balances out estrogen. Progesterone, estrogen is like a yin to a yang. Okay. Obviously, it protects against breast cancer. It actually influences the thyroid. So if progesterone is off, usually thyroid's off too. It reduces inflammation, promotes sleep and relaxation, protects against heart disease, improves ability to cope with stress. And so, like I said, many people, you know, obviously have, you know, many women have, you know, irregular cycles, absent periods, okay? And obviously that gives you low progesterone. All right. And low progesterone is obviously like absence of period, but how does this actually happen? You know, obviously not ovulation happening. You can't get the release of progesterone. That's why you have low progesterone. If you have a lot of anxiety and stress, the body will interpret that, which we'll get into. It won't be able to make hormones anymore. And it'll actually steal from progesterone. It's actually called progesterone steal in the body. Your body will steal cortisol from your body will steal progesterone to make more cortisol. All right. Poor sleep quality obviously impacts progesterone because progesterone has an inverse relationship with the hormone melatonin. Okay. So remember, we're talking about sex hormones here. You have other hormones in your body like insulin, thyroid, melatonin. Okay. But we're mainly talking on the sex hormones like testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, mainly. Okay. Overtraining. This is what happens to a lot of females. They actually get So they overtrain and they get low progesterone, and it messes with ovulation, and they get cysts in the ovaries, and then you have PCOS diagnosis. And then under eating is a big one. So many women walk around with these symptoms, which you'll see, of insomnia, brain fog, fatigue, and it's mainly because they have low progesterone. That's why I wanted to hone in on this topic here. All right, so let's talk about in-depth sex hormones. So estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are among the primary players pretty much governing menstruation, fertility, pregnancy, and obviously menopause in females. And those are like the three main ones that we're looking at here. Progesterone is produced by the adrenals, ovaries, and testes. Mainly, for women, obviously the ovaries and the adrenals, mostly in ovaries and pre-menopause, and then in menopause, mainly adrenals, because the ovaries shut down. So progesterone is also secreted by the corpus luteum and is derived from cholesterol, pregnenolone, progesterone. So I don't have the image here, but most of your hormones are built off each other. It's like a towering effect. And it all starts with cholesterol. And then it converts into pregnenolone and then into progesterone, And so you can take supplements like pregnenolone to support progesterone. Back to saying this is a medical advice, but you can do that if you're having low progesterone, or with my clients in my program, we're using chasteberry.
Mm-hmm.
Different
I've
things.
used that before. Yeah,
exactly, to help with progesterone. But usually, many don't know this, but if your ovaries are already shut down in menopause, just giving chasteberry is not going to be enough, and that's when HRT might be considered. But all of it's relative. Okay, if you already if you have adrenals and everything. Let me see. So if you already have balanced adrenals, that's it. All right. So the next one is progesterone. Or no, we're just on that. All right. Next is your which one is it? This convert into androgen. So this one's going to be testosterone. So pretty much what happens is that cholesterol is pretty much stimulated by LH, which is luteinizing hormone from the pituitary gland, and then it converts into pregnenolone, DHEA, and then your androgens, and then into testosterone for females. So right now, Monica, we're just talking about estrogen, progesterone, testosterone.
Okay, I'll get on camera. I'm just trying to get you on my laptop.
No, you're good. So we're just going over some of the primary sex hormones for females that pretty much govern everything from fertility to pregnancy to menstruation and then menopause. So
okay, great.
All right. So mostly the causes of different hormonal imbalances, and this is why we do each specific thing, throughout the program. All right. So obviously, big ones are obviously nutrition wise. So if diets are rich in sugar, redefined carbohydrates, non-organic meat, even, because the thing is that unfortunately there's actually evidence coming out that conventional meat has residue of antibiotics. And I'm not just saying this. People like Dr. Axe, Josh Axe is saying it. Like other people are saying this. Like, so, conventional dairy products and then obviously excessive caffeine, cortisol will, cause you to have estrogen dominance, aka hormonal imbalance. Obviously, stress. We'll get into this, a whole topic in itself, but poor liver detoxification. Your liver detoxes your estrogen, which you probably see my stuff a lot on that. And it's because there's something called estrobolome, and it's bacteria in the gut that's estrogen that has its own way of getting out through the phases of liver detoxification. Endocrine disruptors, environmental pollutants, hormone disrupting chemicals like BPA and glyphosate, all impact, constipation, poor gut health, lack of exercise. So we look at all these symptoms and now we wonder like, okay, this all makes sense to why we don't feel well and why we have hormonal imbalance, and then I didn't add it in, but you obviously add in like birth control and, other things like that obviously will impact it. And so what happens though is that high levels of estradiol, like having high estrogen for too long a time, can lead to breast, ovarian, adrenal, and uterine cancer. Okay, endometriosis, PCOS, and insulin resistance. Okay, so like I said, environmental toxins, high insulin, poor liver detoxification, poor gut health. All these things drive up hormonal imbalances. By the way, if you have any questions, just let me know. You got anything? So like I said, the causes of low progesterone, because remember, usually when you have low progesterone, you have high estrogen, like we talked about over here. So obviously, if you're not having a cycle and you're not ovulating, there's no release from the corpus luteum for you guys to make progesterone. Okay, so that causes it. If you have PCOS, obviously, when you have cysts in your ovaries, and then that already happens. Hypothyroidism, plays into low progesterone. Remember, some signs that you have low progesterone is that you have terrible, if you are having a cycle, you have bad PMS, it's painful. Usually also you have insomnia, you have migraines. Okay, these are all signs of low progesterone. Okay, if you have high prolactin, okay, that can influence it. Low cholesterol, you aren't making enough, you don't have enough nutrients for hormones. Obviously perimenopause, because that's where it starts. High stress, eating disorders, excessive exercise, and high estrogen. So right here, I kind of want to get on the topic of what are the main causes? So why are these happening? Why do women have all these hormonal imbalances? Okay, big one is insulin. Okay, so many women are insulin resistant. When they get insulin resistant from, obviously, toxins in the environment, being, sometimes overweight, not using the right products, not having resistance training, poor diets, all those things. What happens is that insulin levels, get higher. And so what then happens is that it actually increases the aromatase enzyme, which is the enzyme that converts your testosterone into estrogen. And so additionally, aromatase is found in fat cells. So this is why women who are overweight or have excess body fat are more prone to these conditions related to estrogen dominance, PCOS, endometriosis, and things like that. So excess estrogen, the body signals. So this is why it happens, because with the excess estrogen, your body signals to the brain that there's already enough. It's like, okay, I got it. So you have excess estrogen, your body's like, all right, cool. But then what happens is that the hypothalamus will talk to the pituitary. Now these are two, they're called just pretty much neural steroids in your body. They talk to FSH, follicular stimulating hormone. That's a neural steroid. Okay. And it'll tell you that they won't produce any now because it already said it's efficient. And then this is how the formation of cysts happen. All right. So insulin, big one that drives female hormonal imbalance. All right. Let me add in the other one. Let's get her in. All right, we're in. So yeah, insulin being a big one with hormonal imbalance. All right, next one is cortisol, obviously. So we think about cortisol as obviously stress, but stress comes in many forms. If we are under eating for long periods of time, yo-yo dieting, overtraining, taking a bunch of medications, drinking a lot of alcohol, a lot of redefined carbohydrates, processed food, these are all stresses in the body. Okay, but mostly when we have a lot of like traumatic stress, emotional stress, or things like that, it prioritizes survival over reproduction, which then obviously disrupts the HPO axis, which is the feedback loop of making your hormones for females, the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis. Okay, so then what happens is that the body now receives the stress, okay, and so it will reduce the production of that hormone that we talked about with insulin, FSH, which that hormone is the hormone that starts to signal to your ovaries to produce, different hormones like progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, all those. Okay. So then when those get suppressed, you're not making hormones. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So obviously if you're not making enough hormones, then it prevents the development of ovarian follicles, Okay, and this is how others get PCOS. This is why there's different types of PCOS: insulin resistance, post-pill, inflammation, okay, and then androgen PCOS. So, those are very common. The next is the liver. So when we have poor liver detoxification, your liver detoxes your estrogen. But when there's, different, when there's a lot of stress on the liver from overburden of toxins that we live in an environment, our liver starts to slow down, and when it becomes quote unquote sluggish, we can't detox our estrogen properly. So then it recirculates back into our body. And then it causes inflammation, and then it just, we get estrogen dominance. A big thing is that if you're constipated a lot, that kind of is a sign that you're estrogen dominant, because your body's not excreting the toxins from estrogen, because excess estrogen is toxic, just like excess fat is toxic. Okay. It's not releasing out, obviously. And so endocrine disruptors is the next thing, talking about liver. Endocrine disruptors are different types of, hormone-like chemicals. So that means they get onto our skin and cross the blood-brain barrier and actually converts into hormone in our body. So a lot of the times this is BPAs, plastic, okay? But then also other things like, hair products, skin products, colognes, perfumes, and all other things that actually act like the hormone and disrupts our, obviously endocrine disruptor. And then obviously gut. If the gut is obviously, all disease begins in the gut. So if the gut's already messed up, what happens is that it actually releases something called lipopolysaccharides, which are pretty much, toxic bacteria that can come from the intestinal walls because we have a leaky gut. And so I want you to think about it as like you have tight junctions in your gut, and when they become permeable from all the other underlying causes, it releases that LPS, which then actually inflames the ovaries and obviously messes up ovulation.
So is this basically just like a domino effect? Like it just seems like one thing goes and then it's just
Exactly. So this is that's exactly that's perfect that you talked about that, because that's what we want to look at when we're looking at like a functional approach. So this is this is more so broad, but like talking about like a functional approach, like, so if you're dealing with a gut problem, obviously like I'm talking about now, so dealing with a hormone issue as well.
Yeah.
You're dealing with insulin resistance, you're dealing with a hormone issue as well. Obviously sex hormone, I should say, not just hormone, because insulin is a hormone. And so the thing is that most people treat it just like, oh, my hormone's off, so I'll give you something to help with your hormone, like birth control, but it's actually not the root cause. And this is why people get birth control, like females get birth control, or this is why they take these supplements and they're not actually getting better, because they're not looking at all these other things, the liver, their endocrine disruptors are using every day, their poor gut health, they're not looking at the stress, they're not looking at their insulin levels, and so they're just trying to manipulate the hormone. And we don't do that. We work a process, a deductive process, meaning we're looking at the things that are all together, intertwined together to come up with that hormone, that function. Remember, functional medicine. So we're looking at your systems, all of its systems, all 11 systems working in unison. All right. So menopause. So obviously the average age is 51, and then perimenopause actually typically begins 4 to 10 years prior to menopause. But obviously, perimenopause is considered normal if it starts after age 42. So since your, ovaries, are just shutting down, you're not going to be making progesterone, because, you're not going to have the ovulation for it to happen, obviously. And so the first symptom is obviously low progesterone. So irritability, anxiety, depression, mood swings, PMS, brain fog, stressed, insomnia, difficult sleeping. All right. So here's the thing though. So studies found that women in menopause experience higher fat gain and lean muscle mass loss until 2 years after their final period. So weight gain continues until menopause and then stabilizes. Okay, and this is actually done by not calories in, calories out. This is done by the relationship between sex hormones and metabolism. Estrogen decline affects fat metabolism, cholesterol levels, inflammation, and insulin regulation. Remember, estrogen is still good, even though we were just bashing it before. It actually has a lot of benefit effects. But if it's obviously if it's decline, it can lead to fat store. And you become more insulin resistant.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also get anabolic resistance because you have no hormone to build muscle, you know? And so if we look at the study here, okay, changes in body composition and weight during the menopause transition. So they're looking at the relationship between the menopause transition and changes in body composition because we're looking at body composition because body composition is aka like metabolism. The more muscle you have, the higher basal metabolic rate you have. Okay, and then obviously that fat to muscle ratio. And so what they found was that fat and lean mass increased prior to menopausal transition, and then at the start of menopausal transition, the rate of fat gain doubled. So you have all these women, you might, they just get this rapid influx of weight gain for menopause, but it's just the hormonal shift. It'll even out, but just people get, not comfortable.
Well, I think people get frustrated because it's such a long process. I know I do.
Exactly. So this is,
just forget it. Oh, I can't. It's like an uphill battle sometimes.
I know. So this is why we need to take a holistic approach. We have to look at all these things. So we have to look at your hormones, all right? Obviously your diet and lifestyle, obviously supporting muscle mass, resistance training, ideal protein intake, possibly HRT to protect muscle mass and bone density. And so this is kind of why we focus on these things, these key variables inside, of us working together. And so let me just stop the recording there. Okay. Yeah, so those are kind of the things. So you can still see my screen, right?
Okay.
No. No, we just see you.
All right. All right. I thought